Alrighty then, folks. Got asked about my 4-in-1 DIY air up-down setup. So let's take a look at what this thing is. At the end of the day, it's two 25-foot air hoses from Harbor Freight, two of these T fittings, four of these air chucks, two of the thread-in male fittings to go in here, a four-way, then a dump valve, ball valve. You can use slide valves. I've used this before in the past. I don't really like it. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then a little male fitting and a pressure gauge. You can use analog or digital. I like digital. Your choice. And then what you do is you have at one end of the T a little, like, call it, 3 foot or shorter fitting. And then obviously with your math, you're left over with about 22 feet or so. And then you get to kind of subdivide that based on your vehicle's wheelbase length. Now, I'm dealing with an Excursion, so I had to go with the longest length possible to get to those back wheels. Otherwise, I was stretching my lines. It's really terrible. If you're running something like an Outback, way less of a concern. You can just kind of split in half, do what you want to do. So anyways, my first line from my four-way until my T, I think this line is maybe about 8 foot or so. And then the rest of it runs to that back fitting back here. Couple things to think about when you're building this system is the type of air chuck you want to use. I really like these clip-on air chucks. I've seen thread on. That seems like a bunch of extra work to me. The one thing I would do differently is I would get the ones that spin. These are fixed, so like as this rotates, the hose rotates, which can give you a couple of issues when you're threading it on there. The other thing to consider is whether you want to thread it on like I have onto the hose or whether you do quick disconnects here. What that does, if you quick disconnect the entire system, it gives you the ability to string together your lines and convert it from, say, a four-way into a two-way, or you can make one really, really, really long line if you're running somewhere else. Something to consider. As I mentioned, you can choose analog or digital for your gauge. And then your dump valve. I like dump valves because it's this physical, sliding, very hard to screw up kind of thing. I had a slide valve on a previous iteration, but I found that slide valve, especially you drop the thing, it get into weird positions. It sometimes open itself up. Wasn't quite the right solution as this like kind of a little difficult to turn deal there. Yeah, so that is the system. If you do the system like I did with these, you're going to want to bring whatever like 5/8 wrench this is and tighten these up a couple times on the trail because, you're going to get a little bit of air leak until you get these to the right amount of tightness. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. As I mentioned, I buy the line from Harbor Freight or wherever because I want this crimped fitting done for me so I can just thread this in. Now, if you're making and doing a bunch of quick disconnects and fanciness, maybe you just buy a hose and go from there. Your choice, really. But that's the system. This whole thing, as you see it right here, was put together for under $100. I think like $83.72 is my number. Don't quote me on that at all. But it's an easy thing to put together, and then I throw it in a bag, a little reedy bag right over there, and throw it in the back of the truck, and then you can air up and air down and have a comfy ride.